You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Good morning and welcome to Old Town Cleveland here on WOOP FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.woopfm.com. You can call us here at 614-5553, as Morgan would say, 423-614-5553. Debbie Moore, what's going on today?
We have an empty chair.
Oh, he's here.
He's here. Today is August the 26th, 2017. We're having the big car show in downtown Cleveland today. Be sure to get down there and look at all the neat cars. We were there about 9 o'clock, and the cars were already pulling in, although it doesn't officially start till noon. I guess that's the people that have their favorite parking spots.
Charlie could make a stir walking through the car show in his outfit there, couldn't he?
Charlie is dressed today as what, Charlie? Close to the microphone there.
I got to turn it on first.
Sorry. A gentleman umpiring a baseball game that'll be happening.
From what year?
1860s. We're playing 1864 vintage baseball, so it'd be 1864.
And will you take that jacket off in the Tennessee heat today?
Typically, I'll call the first 2 or 3 innings, and then I find a lady, one of which I kind of keep going back and asking. I'll ask for permission to call the rest of the game in my shirt sleeves. And the one lady that I've asked this once, and I go back because she's a regular at the games, she said, honey, you can play naked, or you can call the game naked if you'd like to. I'm like, no.
And you said, no.
No, ma'am.
No. He has on a long wool jacket and big checked pants.
Tartan pants.
Oh, yes, they are tartan, aren't they?
Gordon.
Yes. Gordon. Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit, too. We'll talk about that. So tell us about the game and where it's at.
The game that I'm calling begins at 2:30 at Ramsey Historic House, Plantation. It's kind of on the the east side of Knoxville. It's about an hour and a half from right here.
Yeah, we appreciate you being here today. Busy day for you. So is there an admission fee?
No. Vintage baseball games are free to the public. There'll be a game at 12, and then the game I'm calling is the Mechanics against a team from Nashville. Mm-hmm. The Holstons, which was the team I played with or for 2 years, they'll be playing at 12. And I'm not sure who they're playing either. But
does Chattanooga still have a team?
There's still 2 teams. I'll look at an email and see if I know they're playing down at Fort Oglethorpe. And
right.
That's
yeah,
today.
that's the one that we've
That's
always
the
talked
6th
about.
Cavalry, right?
Yeah.
Well, now let me ask you this: are the rules the same today as they were in what year?
1864.
So baseball goes all the way back to 1864.
It goes back to the 18th century. It's not clear. Jane Austen actually mentions in one of her diaries that she went to a county fair and they were playing cricket and they were playing baseball.
Wow. And what year would that have been?
That would have been in 1810 or in the early 1800s. I'm not exactly sure when she wrote that in her diary. We know it was being played by British soldiers. There's other diaries and comments about them playing baseball. And what it actually is, nobody really knows. Somebody started writing down the rules around, I think it was in 1830s. And by 1850s and 1860s, it's very similar to what we play today. Abner Doubleday did not invent baseball.
Okay, so that's what we've always been told, Charlie.
His family managed to give a bunch of money to, I think, the baseball museum or something. Yeah. And
That's how that works.
He developed rules. He developed a bunch of rules during the Civil War. There's a picture at Fort Sumter of a group of men standing, like a company or two, standing out, and right behind them they're playing a baseball game. So the main rules, we play no gloves. It's barehanded baseball.
But you can catch it on the
You can catch it on the fly, and the runner is out. Okay,
automatically. Yeah.
If the striker is the person that hits the ball. Catch it on the fly, the striker's out. And if you're a runner on the bases, you have to tag back up to your base, and then you can run to the next base.
Okay.
If it's caught on the fly. If the ball bounces, now this is one of the rules. If it bounces once and you catch it, then the striker is out, but you as a runner don't have to run back to your base and tag up. You can keep going. So 99, a lot of people say 99 times out of 10, they catch it on the bounce.
Because it hurts to catch it on the fly.
I would say about 80% of the time they catch it on the bounce. And then there's those guys that just snatch it out of the air, and you can hear it. Smack their hand.
You can break a finger doing that.
But when they do that, and that's when I was playing, I got several times. I'd be too far and couldn't get back to the base, and they'd throw me out. So, so that's one of the things that.
So was it a gentleman's sport, or was that?
Yes.
Saying nasty stuff to each other.
Well, in the 19th century, they would they did slide. They would steal bases. We have a rule of no stealing and no sliding. They didn't slide as much. It was for instance, you had to stop on first base. You're not allowed to overrun first base. You've got to stop on the base. So that's one of the things that kind of comes in. The base distance is exactly the same. It's 90 feet from home plate to first, and then the second to third, and back to plate. It's 90 feet in between. So it's the same size field as it was.
So the pitcher tries to strike them out?
The pitcher is actually supposed to present the ball. He is to present it to the striker so that the striker can hit the ball. That makes the game move very quickly, usually, and the game is played in the field. It's not just a pitcher and a catcher throwing back and forth and some guy with a stick standing there looking at it go by. If you have a pitcher that's throwing, it's to be released under the belt, so you're pitching underhanded, released under the belt, and you kind of watch if a pitcher is trying to spin it or do put twists on it. You need to present the ball to the striker so that he can.
So if they do get mad at each other, do they have a duel?
No, dueling is
against the rules.
Is no at this time. Yeah.
Polo's an old sport too, isn't it? It's an English sport or
polo? I don't know. I don't know that.
Well, I think
you need to come to the polo match.
I heard there's a polo match down.
Yes, there are two of them. Matter of fact, on what's the date? It's in September.
I don't know. Facebook's
Saturday
not
morning
working.
at 10 o'clock. We won't be there. Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. But there's one on Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock. And I think, is it Argentina maybe going to come in and play them?
Oh, wow.
We have international matches here.
Yes.
Wow.
And it's absolutely free Coke
Now,
product.
every now and then there's someone standing there with a bucket, and if you want to put some change in it,
For the
that's
6th Cavalry.
For the 6th Cavalry.
Down where they
cool.
play
Because
the
they've
game.
been coming here to play polo for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I'll look that up here in a minute. Apparently Facebook is down this morning.
And the most important thing that I could say about next week is the McDonald Rooting Club has their monthly breakfast. $6 for about all the food you ever want to eat, or can eat, I should say.
And they spend that money that they make in the
Back
community.
in the school systems and so it's really good. So
I know that being in that community, in an elementary school, if we have a need, we just have to ask, and they will fulfill it. Last year they bought us a whole supply of clothing to keep at school for when chocolate milk spills on a kid in the middle of the day, and then we don't have to call mom at work to come get him. And I know if you're not in the school system, you don't think about that. But elementary kids can get themselves in a mess real fast.
You know, the first time that I saw this vintage baseball was Deb and I was on the Booze Traveler on the Travel Channel, and we traveled over to Middle Tennessee, and we're talking about moonshining and dirt track racing. And from there, they went and they showed a baseball game. A vintage
In
baseball.
Nashville, I
Nashville
guess.
it was, and they were showing them that how it was a gentleman's
Gentleman's
sports, and then of course we found out that you did that. And so have you decided? How to say this? As you've got older, you're not going to play anymore. Is it just,
You become the umpire.
or is it easier on your body?
Well, we've got some folks, we've got a couple of gentlemen that are better than 72, 74 years old playing. And for me, the first year they had a rule where you could only practice one time that season, and then you play your games basically run from kind of the tail end of April all the way through September, and it's almost every 2 weeks you're playing a game.
Yeah.
And you're not traveling so much. They kind of plan it so that you're not, running to Nashville every other weekend, but you do go on some road games, and it was fun. But the one thing, it started cutting into my other living history periods.
Yes.
The second year, they did away with the rule for practices, and so we started having practices on Thursday nights, and I was hind catching, so I'm catching the ball every time the striker doesn't hit it, then I would catch the ball, and so I was eating ibuprofen like it was M&Ms, and by Saturday, there's one picture of me lunging for the ball, and I've got my hands closed. The ball had already hit my hands, bounced out, and I was closing them. So I've got a little bit of touch of arthritis. So,
Yeah.
and there again, I missed several events that I had wanted to go to, living history-wise. So between my hands and other history, I kind of said, well, I'll step out and umpire.
Explain this living history.
You
stuff.
do a lot of reenactment type stuff. What all other
Things.
characters or
We don't know what to call it.
What's the
It's
proper
not a
term?
costume either. It is, what is it?
It's not clothing. I mean, clothing, uniforms. I mean, that's one of the things I always have. It's not a costume. A costume's something you buy at Kmart, and
for
put on for
Halloween.
Halloween.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It has no function. I mean, if it's you make if it has no pockets and it's supposed to, then to me that's the costume. But if you have functioning clothes, it's period clothes or period uniforms. They function and act like they were supposed to when they were being worn 100 years ago or 200.
So then how many periods do you cover then?
Several.
I have seen you in several. I've seen you in
A kilt.
Sam Houston,
Yeah, I do War of 1812,
1812, World War I.
Mexican War. Now I can do Texas independence. So
Yeah.
1836.
And then sort of a carpetbagger type something.
Well, I don't do the carpetbagger. I can do Union, Confederate. I can even do Union or Confederate naval. That was something I came across a really good deal on the uniforms at a reenactment, and I just couldn't walk away from them. So
Charlie and Deb and I, we were involved in a trip to Texas back late last year. Is it
March.
March. Is it this year? Okay.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out when I'd left. And you see where I was. I don't know where I was. And every day Charlie showed up in a different outfit.
attire.
And every day, so it's pretty interesting. And of course,
I think half the van was his clothes.
My favorite part of being there, there's a lot of parts, but we were coming back from an event where they were planning the revolt there, Sam Houston, and we went to a big dinner. It was really nice. Then we watched the Alamo.
yeah,
That was. And Charlie was driving the van back, and there was the strangest car in front of us we had ever seen. It had
Everything
air
they
conditioners and beds on it, and it stayed in front of us for all the way back through Texas.
And it was hard. We
it was
couldn't
driving
pass
slow.
it. It was driving slow and weaving.
All over the road. So,
Yeah.
But there was as much stuff piled on top of the car as the size of the car, the vehicle.
We got to the point where we were going to turn off, and it turned on its turn signal, went right in front of us.
Yeah.
So
But we were all just
strange things you remember as you get older, though.
waiting for the cargo to explode up there or something. I don't know. We never figured out. We couldn't figure out if it was scrap metal or if it was everything they owned tied to the top of the car.
Or somebody was missing an air conditioner and they didn't know it.
Right.
And we don't know about that either.
That was a pretty wild night.
Charlie,
there's a lot of rural countryside in Texas, and I think we saw a whole bunch of it. And matter of fact, our thoughts and prayers go out to the folks in Texas this morning that are waiting for Harvey to land if it hasn't already landed, and it's going to be a mess.
Deb started without telling you this is Charlie Rodarmer. He is the executive director, I guess is the term.
A manager/director. So I'm always arguing with myself.
Yes. Of the Sequiyah
and if you go there,
Museum.
he may be doing most anything. He was cleaning picnic tables the last time we were there.
Sequiyah Birthplace Museum. And the good news about the museum, it's a great museum. I was talking to a guy last night and said, he asked me what was going to be on the show today. And he said, well, I've never been to that museum. I said, well, don't go now.
Yeah.
Wait,
no, you can come.
You can come. You can see the gift shop, but there is a complete rebuild of the museum. Mm-hmm. They're doing new exhibits, new everything. Everything's upgraded, and that's target date late January.
The target date to get back in the building is December 21st, is what the contractor said. Yeah. And one day, or a couple of weeks ago, I asked, and he was complaining that he was already a week behind. And then he told Linda, one of my staff, that they were a week ahead. So we don't know what they are. So they're contractors. So
if you get back in the building, then that means all the exhibits have to be built in.
Right.
They'll be all planned.
Well, we'll get back in the building. We'll get the gift shop back open in the building. If you come right now, the gift shop, we've relocated it into a temporary trailer. We have our offices in that temporary trailer. So we have all our books, all the jewelry, all the music, all the crafts, all the art. We have all that. So if you're looking for a gift for somebody.
The grounds are still open, aren't they? We'll talk about that.
Yeah, the grounds are open. We have, of course, the 1809 blacksmith shop. We have the cabin. We have the council house structure, or the inner structure of the council house at Chota, so you can see exactly how big that structure was up at Chota. We have the memorial mound. Our grounds, our hiking trail, the Maxwell D. Ramsey Shoreline Trail, is open for people to hike. You can. We have our fall festival is coming up. It's going to be the Cherokee Fall Festival is going to be September 9th and 10th. They're on the ground, so we're going to continue, our programs outside. The one thing is the building's closed off, roped off. We're pulling all the brick off the outside. The brick has failed, the wires that tie it between the cinder block to the. So we're actually going to have a brand new pattern. That was one of the highlights of my day yesterday. Was the fact that the brick masons had came and they built the prototype of how the brick's going to look off to the side. So if you come up to the gift shop, you'll see our Cherokee Basket Bear, the entrance to go up into the trailer to the gift shop, and you'll see the brick and how it's going to look. It's going to be a basket pattern.
Man, now how far did you have to look to find someone that could do that?
Well, our architect actually put it together. So Lee Ingram with I can't remember the whole name, but it's Lee Ingram. He's the architect out of Knoxville, and he originally designed the original building. So,
and what 79-ish? When did
we opened our doors June 28th of 1986.
Oh, okay.
So the museum's been there for 32 years. And it was time to do a facelift. It was time.
Oh yeah, it was. It was getting a little dull and
carpet and
outdated.
Yeah.
So what's the new kind of things that will be in there?
When we'll get back in the building around December, January. We get the gift shop open. We'll have a big L-shaped meeting space. So we do our winter lectures We have folks come in and talk about different subjects about Cherokee code. Like last year, we had Cherokee code talkers. We had in World War One, the Cherokee code talkers that originated the whole process, which it was Cherokees in the 30th Division, which the 30th Division is from here in Tennessee and some of Western North Carolina. And it was those Cherokees from the Eastern Band from Western North Carolina that were those first code talkers.
Amazing.
So we had a lecture about that. We've had different lectures. We'll probably have you come and talk about your book that you're working on. So
it's a beast. You know, I'm to that moment that I'm thinking, oh no, now I have to do an index. But it's coming along. It'll be out soon.
Great.
She's at 421 pages now.
Oh, wow.
With no index or no introduction. Yeah.
So it's pretty
Pretty big.
Before we get any further, tell people where it is located.
We're located in Von Orr, Tennessee. It's Von Orr, and it's we're 576 Highway 360 in Von Orr, Tennessee. If you're doing by GPS, if you just get on 411, and you can head up 75, or you can just then cut across off. I think it's exit 72 on Highway 72, and that brings you over into Von Orr, and then you turn north onto 411, or you just go out here, get on 411, go north.
At 30 miles an hour.
It's a nice. You go through some nice towns and stuff.
We go that way often.
And then when you get there, you'll when you get into Von Orr, you'll see the Hardys and the Sloan's BP there in Von Orr, and you turn right between those on Highway 360. And
now,
we're just out there.
You pass Fort Loudon.
Fort Loudon, we share an aisle.
Fort Loudon will be on your left, and you'll go on down a little below that, and the museum's on the right.
Correct. Yep. Okay. Yep. We when they created the Tellico Lake, it formed an island, and so Fort Loudon is actually they're on everything. For Fort Loudon State Park is on the left side of the road, and everything on the right side is the Eastern Band. And
the river's right behind you, right?
Well, the river's on the Fort Loudon side.
Okay.
So we're surrounded by lake.
Yeah.
So,
okay. There's water behind you. I knew that.
Yeah. Originally, it was just big fields.
Now that's the Little Tennessee behind you, or the Tennessee?
It's the Little Tennessee on the Fort side. We have the Tellico River that comes out of Tellico.
Okay.
On our side, but it's kind of off from it.
Well, let me ask you this: was there an effort to make that the Sequiyah Birthplace Museum a state park?
Not that I know of a state park. What it was is when when they were creating the lake, and of course there was all the controversy. The Snell darter, the environmentalists were protesting. You can't build this lake. You can't do this because it'll cause the little Snell darter to go extinct. And it goes.
And
all
we found Snell darters everywhere.
Oh yeah, they're living well and doing well in a lot of other places, so they didn't go. But the environmentalists kept. And the Cherokee were protesting this too. And finally, the Cherokee, when Jimmy Carter signed a bill into law that said you'll ignore all federal laws, finish this dam, close the gates, and be done with it. When that happened, that's when the Cherokee went to TVA and said, how are you going to help us commemorate and remember the Cherokee that lived here?
Because the village is underwater.
All of them. I mean,
all of them.
98% of those villages.
Yeah. A lot of what's in my book, I'll say, this is when Chickamauga Dam's being constructed, and the farmland that you see over to the right was Toccoa Village. And you think, oh my gosh, we put all these ancient villages underwater.
Right.
Now, we did create flood control. We did create recreation, but we put a lot of historical stuff underwater. I was in the at the Winterfest in the Smoky Mountains, and the fellow that came and talked about the Appalachia a few weeks ago, he was there, and he showed the old TV footage about the Cherokees being on site there when the dam had been closed and the water was coming up. It wasn't anywhere close to them at that moment because it took a long time, apparently. But then they were interviewing the people that lived in the houses that had not left yet. And this little lady's going, well, I don't know where I'm going to go.
Yeah.
Have you seen that footage?
I haven't seen that. There's some video of a gentleman that flew the river and actually videoed, filmed what it looked like in the original riverbed before it was flooded.
Well, now that's interesting. But
what year was did they close the dam?
It was November of 1979.
Yeah.
79, okay.
And it took 6 weeks for the Tellico to back up, to impound. So it took 6 weeks to fill. Yeah, I know several people recently. One gentleman passed away, and he was one of the last holdouts. The U.S. Marshals had actually shown up, and I think it was the sheriff went in and talked him into actually coming out peacefully. But I think there was actually 6 people that came down to almost having the marshals drag them out.
I think it was these little pitiful women that, and they had their lots full of dogs, and they're going, well, what am I going to do about my dogs? That kind of stuff. And it was really
Manny Randolph
pitiful.
at one time at the Norris Dam was the only person that had ever been removed by a U.S. Marshal for the closing of the TVA dam at Norris, and ironically, her son that was 9-year-old at that time, lives here in Cleveland, Tennessee, and they were picking roasting ears, they called them, and a flat-bottom boat. They'd already flooded their cornfield, and they were going through the cornfield in flat-bottom boats picking their corn, and finally the marshal showed up, picked them up, put them in boats, took them up to the road, took them to the poorhouse, dropped them off, and that's where they were left.
cattle and all. They just took everything up there.
And then they burned the house. As they drove away, they burned the cabin down and the water
to keep
back
them
on
from
up.
coming back, I'm sure.
And the movie Wild River, which was filmed here in Bradley County,
Parts
is
of it.
sort of based off that same story. If you read, if you go down to the National Archives in Atlanta, or it's Bristleton, right outside of Atlanta there, they, in the lobby it says, this is the reason the movie Wild River and this is tied together. And Charlie lives here, and he's come in and told us stories about, he's the one that said he was picking roasting ears when he was 9 years old in a boat, and pretty interesting. But, they're amazing pictures of them removing graves when they're doing that. And so
now there were graves there, Charlie. What were they? They knew about the Cherokee, some of the Cherokee graves.
Well, see, that was the one thing on the benefit of history is TVA had the University of Tennessee, the anthropology department came in, and they did basically, it's the largest archaeological project that was in the United States. They did digs all up and down the Little Tennessee, the Tellico. They had the Timberlake maps, and so some sites were done. They did 100% archaeology, which they dug until they actually found no more evidence of human existence being there.
Where are all those artifacts?
At the McClung Museum up at UT.
Can you see them, or they're in they're in the basement?
You can see them. You can see some of the best. What we had at the museum was part of that. And if you go into the exhibit, the Native Peoples exhibit there at the McClung, that's where those best of the artifacts are there. But you go down, and we're talking huge rooms. Huge rooms, rooms as big as out in the
lobby
or
out in the, okay.
And there's shelves stacked floor to ceiling with numbered boxes, and
there's supposed to be 5 bodies from Charleston, Tennessee,
on a shelf somewhere up there too. We would like to reinter those.
Yeah.
So
they dug them up when they thought that the floodwaters, when they closed Chickamauga Dam, they thought the water would come up to that point, but it never
been to
did.
the river farm where it is. It's actually where it is now, where they got the bodies. So it'd be nice, if we had those back. But
well, I think there's some talk about that and having the Native Americans come reinter them. Now, what our listeners might not realize is that just wasn't Cherokee. We're talking about ancient people lived up there.
Yeah. See, this is one of the things that set a precedent back in the 80s. Part of when the Cherokee said, how are you going to help commemorate and remember these people that were here, the Cherokee people that were here, and TVA hired a company that came up with 38 different concepts. And in those concepts was, we'll return some of the remains. And so what they did is they returned the remains that could be identified as 18th century Cherokee, and those were returned back to the Eastern Band, and they created the Memorial Mound, which is there at Sequiyah Birthplace Museum, and they reinterred 191 Cherokee remains there. And so, you had curators and scientists, anthropologists. Oh my gosh, these are artifacts. These are things we're still studying. And the Cherokee people, as well as a lot of other tribes and nations, have been saying these are our grandparents. These are human beings.
Right, you're right.
We're not studying. Put them
And so
back in the ground.
That's what happened. And so that set the precedent for NAGPRA, which is the Native American Repatriation